So we're in 2 Kings 4. And if we remember, Elijah left. Elijah is now the prophet. And he's going to start doing some more miracles. A certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophet cried out to Elijah, saying, "Your servant, my husband, is dead. And you know that your servant feared the Lord, and the creditors is coming to take my 2 sons to be his slaves." So Elijah said to her, "What shall I do for you? Tell me what do you have in your house?" And she said, "Your maidservant has nothing in her house but a jar of oil." Then he said to her, "Go borrow vessels from all your neighbors, empty vessels, do not gather just a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons, then pour it into all the vessels and set aside the full ones." So she went from him and shut the doors behind her and her son, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured it out. Now it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said to her son, "Bring me another vessel." And he said to her, "There is no other vessels." So the oil ceased. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, "Go sell the oil and pay your debts, and you and your sons shall live on the rest." So here's this lady. What do we notice about her? She's poor, isn't she? And she was a wife of the sons of the prophets. Now she's poor, and she's afraid because they want to take her sons to pay off the debt that her husband had. So she's coming to Elijah to ask, "What should I do?" And he tells her, he goes to her and he says, "What do you have in your house?" Now he knows she's poor. And she says, "I just have a jar of oil." Back then, oil was worth a lot. It was used for cooking, it was used for heating, it was used for lamps, the oil was really used a lot. So she said, "This is the only thing I had." And what does he have her do? He says, "Go out and get vessels from everywhere." The vessels, if you look what it was almost like a flask. So they're real tiny. They're not that big. And she was supposed to go everywhere and ask the neighbors and go around and gather them. So she had to go out and put works for this, didn't she? She had to go and collect all these vessels and bring them back. But the number one thing is she had to have faith in Elijah, didn't she? She had to have faith in what his words were going to say that was going to happen. So she goes and gets all these vessels, and her sons shut the door behind her. And as she poured it out, every one of the vessels were full. God filled every one of the vessels. And she said that they ceased to have any more oil because they're all full. Then she came and told Elijah, and what did he tell her to do? Go pay off your debt, and you and your sons live off the rest. So there must have been a lot of oil, because they had enough to pay off their debt, and they also had enough to live off of. God really provided with this miracle, didn't he? Mm-hmm. Here he is. She's a poor woman. She's been living for God. And he takes care of her, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. And then in verse 8, Elijah rose and went to Simeon's son. Now it happened on the day Elijah went to Shuhan, where there was a notable woman, and she persuaded him to eat some food. So it was, as often as he passed by, he would turn in there and eat some food. And she said to her husband, "Look now, I know that this is a holy man of God, who passes by regularly. Please let us make a small upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed for him there, and a table and chair and a lampstand. So it'll be wherever he comes to us, he can turn in there." And it happened one day that he came there, and he turned to the upper room and lay down there. Then he said to Jahaz, his servant, "Call this Shunammite woman." When he had called her, she stood before him. And he said to him, "Say now to her, 'Look, you have been concerned for us with all this care. What can I do for you? Do you not want me to speak on your behalf to the kings, or to the commanders, or to the armies?" She answered, "I dwell among my own people." So she said, "What then is to be done for her?" And Gehazi answered, "Actually, she has no son, and her husband is old." So he said, "Call her." When he had called her, she stood in the doorway. Then he said, "About this time next year you shall embrace a son." And she said, "No, my lord, man of God, do not lie to your maidservants." So what's the difference between these two women? One was poor, wasn't she? Mm-hmm. And the one's rich. But the poor one, what did she do? She asked for the blessing, didn't she? Mm-hmm. The other lady, she didn't ask for the blessing, did she? No. God sometimes gives us what we want, even when we don't ask. When we ask, he provides. But sometimes he sees what we do, and he provides for us, don't he? Because he asked her what she needed, and she said nothing. And then he found out she didn't have a son. So he told her, "You'll have a son." And then in verse 16, then he said, no, verse 17, "But the woman conceived and bore a son, when the appointed time had come, of which Elijah had told her. And the child grew. Now it happened on one day that he went out to his father to the reaper. And he said to his father, 'My head, my head.' And he said to the servant, 'Carry him to his mother.' When he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knee till noon and then died. Then she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, shut the door upon him, and went out. Then she called her husband and said, 'Please send me one of your young men and one of the donkeys, that I may run to the man of God and come back.' So he said, 'Why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath.' And he said, 'It is well.' Then she saddled the donkey and said to her servant, 'Drive and go forward, but not slacking the pace for me unless I tell you.' And so she departed and went to the man of God in Mount Carmel. So it was when the man of God saw her afar off that he said to his servant Gehazi, 'Look, the Samaritan Simonite woman, please run now to meet her, and say to her, it is well with you. It is well with your husband. It is well with your child.' And she answered, 'It is well.' Now when she came to the man of God at the hill, she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to push her away. But the man of God said, 'Let her alone, for her soul is in deep distress, and the Lord has hidden it from me, and has not told me.' So he said, 'Did I ask the son of my Lord, and not say, do not deceive me?' Then he said to Gehazi, 'Get yourself ready, take my staff in your hand, and be on your way. If you meet anyone, do not greet him. And if anyone greets you, do not answer him. But lay my staff on the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you. So he rose and followed her. Now Gehazi went on ahead of them and laid the staff on the face of the child, but there was neither voice nor hearing. Therefore he went back to meet him and told him, saying, the child has not awakened. So Elijah came into the house. There was a child lying dead in the bed. He went there and shut the door behind him and prayed to the Lord. And he went up and lay on the child and put his mouth on his mouth. And he set on his eyes on his eyes and his hands on his hands. And he stretched him out of the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. He turned and walked back and forth in the house, and again went up and stretched himself out on him. Then the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi and said, call this Shimeonite woman. So he called her, and when he came to him, he said, pick up your son. So he went in, fell at his feet, and bowed to the ground. Then she picked up her son and went out. So what happened? Her son passes away, don't he? He's out in the field working. His head starts hurting him. He goes home and he dies on his mother, don't he? What did she do? She didn't give up, did she? She went, saddled her donkey, took the boy up in the room she made for him, saddled the donkey, and went out to find him. And she knew that was her only hope. And what did Elisha do? He brings him back to life. This is the second miracle, the third miracle now. And as we read, he's going to do a few more. But the difference is we've got to realize that when we ask God for stuff, sometimes he's going to give it to us.
He's doing more stuff than Elijah did.
Yep.
Double portion.
He'll do double what he did. Even though he wasn't really asked, he was asking for the inheritance so he could do as much as him. But God gave him double even the miracles. So let's go to prayer.